I'll start then. Thanks for coming along. Great to see you. Appreciate your time. Bring your hands together into the heart center. Tadasana Namaskara. So feet are touching if possible, but of course if your thighs meet before your feet, then it would be foolish to try and force the feet together. So if they are apart, make sure they're level. Not you don't have one forwards, one back, one to the left, one to the right. Just nice and easy, nice and level. As I'm talking to you, I'm moving my feet. I've watched a lot of yoga teachers over the years, and lots of them like to extend their foot from front to back, which is great. Just noticing, but I tend to prefer laterally from side to side. Obviously, there's benefits to both. So I tend to lift up the big toe side of each foot alternately and then lay it back down. In this way, there's adjustment taking place on the outer shins, on the inner knees, and you can really feel relationships beginning to form between the gluteal creases, which is the top of the thighs where the bum and thighs meet, and the front groins, and just underneath the hip joints and the inner groins as well. Anyway, let's cut that short to say tune in. Tune in and breathe. And gradually, as you're moving and tuning in, whether you move your feet from front to back or side to side or something different, I think you'll begin to feel something at the pelvic floor. It's like a reiterative reminder to keep the energy in the central channel, where it tends to leak out to the world, as it were, into out there. And then once the energy's not flowing in the central channel loses its sense of being center, the middle. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms diagonally down, raise your arms up. Sorry, mine have disappeared off screen, but I promise you they're still there. Lightly toning your tummy and looking for ways in which to gather. So one metaphor I used to use is gathering flowers, wild flowers, together. So there's a sense in which you're gathering parts of the body together and bringing them together into this one stream, grata. Grata means literally one, grasping one thing. So that's kind of what we do in meditation, isn't it? And eventually, that we're not grasping anything in particular. So there's an abstinence. Once I could do this for a while, actually. It's very, very pleasant if you know what you're doing, which I'm sure you do, which is bringing energy together, gathering disparate fibers, pulling them into the center and up. So anyway, just in case might have had enough, the arms come up to Tarasana, or at least the arm part, and then we're going to step the feet to the feet part of Tarasana. Tara, of course, is the name of a beautiful goddess for whom you can't see it, but there's a shrine just over there to Tara. But the name Tara means star. So twinkle your fingers a little bit. So important nerves, all the nerves are important, but median nerve is a very important nerve in the sense that it connects to a very large area of the brachial plexus. It has its roots going to all the way along the brachial plexus, actually, C5 to T1. Turn your back toes in, front foot and leg out on the ball of the foot, finish off the turn on the heel, inhale, exhale, Trikonasana. Imagine you're holding onto something with your backhand. Could be like an elasticated fiber that's connected to the corner of the room, and you're stretching it as you go down. So you don't just collapse down. So you've got this, you're holding on to this elasticated fiber and breathing. So of course we can have the arms straight up, but we're going to keep it held back like that, as if you're pulling on this tensile tissue, this elasticated fiber, like a resistance band. And you just keep breathing into it. And of course, please feel encouraged to adjust and readjust. So for me, that starts at the feet. I'm allowing, for example, the little toe side of my back foot to lift and land, and the big toe side of my front foot to lift and land multiple times. And I'm using that to tune in. Okay. Okay, inhale. Imagine that band is pulling you back up. Back to your Tarasana. You can rest your arms if you need to, of course. Hands can go to the hips. Back toes turn in, front foot and leg, ball of the foot first. Finish off the turn on the heel. Holding your elasticated band as if it were tied to the ceiling in the corner of the room. Inhaling, exhaling, and imagine that that's, offers some resistance, some tensile resistance. And remember, we're keeping the arm, if you're okay, to do that diagonally position, as if you're holding this elasticated band. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having the arm straight up. This is just another way of experimenting with energy flow. In that regard, make sure your breath is deep, open, and honest. So expressive, natural, investigative. Eyes are soft, brain is soft, throat is soft. So there's still a sense in which, you could imagine that elasticate band sort of wants to pull you back up. And I think you might find that sensation elongates your bottom ribs. That sensation elongates your bottom ribs. Keep breathing free, keep breathing natural. And then up you come with the elastic band, imaginary elastic band, and then hands can come to the hips now. Feet face forwards, deep breaths, plural. So 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6 deep breaths. And then we're going to walk the feet towards each other. Now, I'd like you, if you can, I think you can, to face a wall or use a chair. So you might want to put a chair in front of you. That's fine, because we're going to put a foot on it, or use a wall. Doesn't matter which way you do it, because we're going to come into the Parivrita Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana. So when you've got your wall, here I've got a door, foot goes on it, just as mine has. Could be on a chair back, or the chair seat with blocks on it. And we try not to turn the standing leg foot out when we come up like this. Otherwise, we're just going with some skatas. Chest is lifted, breathing is nasal. So I'll give you a little longer if you need it. Just don't feel rushed to get your foot up on the chair, the wall, the chair seat with blocks on it, window ledge, any of those will do. And then we're going to turn. Some of you have got the leg quite high, so you could press against the leg if that was the case. But otherwise, you can also just have the arm stretched out, or even with the hand on the hip, if you prefer. That is still meditative. The poses are not inherently yogic or inherently magical in any way. But it's our investigation, our exploration that empowers them. So empowers them with this absorbing quality, which takes us from the world of separate things into the world of interdependence. So hand on the hip or arm stretched out, up to you. This is the Parivrita Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana. Delicious. I hope you're enjoying it. Release, return to center, and with calmness, place your foot back down, and I'll turn the other way so I can still face you. And when you're ready, placing your foot up. So before I used a door, and now I'm using a ledge. So you can see that there's lots of options. Obviously, it depends on height, which is the most suitable option for you. Take your own time. I personally quite like to lift my heel of the standing leg. Again, it ain't what you do, but the way that you do it. Yeah, you know that song. But it's true. And then turning when you're ready, could have your hand against your leg if the leg's high enough, and the other arm extended out. And you can see my standing leg is sloping as well. That helps with adhesion. Plus, it gives a little bit more spacious invitation to release in the inner groin. So anytime you want to lift and land the heel, move the pose backwards, forwards, wiggle your fingers, place a hand on the hip. These are all things you should feel very, very free. to play as you like. So deep breath, natural breaths, investigative awareness, soft eyes, calm brain. So repetition of investigation. Great, okay. We'll come down again with a sense of calmness, ideally. We're going to take ourselves a brick block. Of course, these come in many forms, including space material, cork. What else have we got in here? Bamboo. I'm going to go for bamboo. Very spoilt, all this stuff. So brick block, if you've got one, you can use a regular block if not, or anything you can substitute, kiln jar, if you've got those. I have, we have, quite like them. We're going to have 1 foot forwards now. You notice I've got the foot closest to the screen, forwards. So that in a minute when we turn, I'll be turning towards you. You could do the same if you want. That way you can still use me as a sort of visual reference if that works for you, but it will be okay either way. The distance across the width of the mat is up to, but not beyond hip width, and no narrower than heel to heel. So not heel to arch, that's for sure. Heel to heel or wider up to hip width for all of these kind of poses. Virabhadrasana number 1 included. Now, take the block in the opposite hand to the front leg. So my front leg is the right leg, so I'm taking it in my left hand and raise it up. The weight of the brick block automatically or naturally creates a counter energy upwards. Every force creates an equal and opposite force, said Sir Isaac Newton. Inhale, exhale, feel your back leg release. You're going to bring the block down on the big toe or little toe side of the foot, any height that suits you. And the other hand will go onto the sacrum, which is the bony plate between the buttock flesh above the tailbone and below the waist. Take deep natural breaths and avoid gripping the gluteus maximus on the back leg. Avoid gripping the gluteus maximus on the back leg. Because some of the fibers on the gluteus maximus on the back leg are external rotators. And we want to internally rotate the leg actually. Keep breathing natural through your nose, investigative, extending your bottom ribs. There is, of course, the choice to raise the top arm if you want, but sometimes it can be a distraction from, the sort of main base of the pose. So that would only be, you only put the icing on once the cake is baked. It's a metaphor. So deep breaths. Lots more we could say, but we'll come up either with or without the block. If it seems too hard to come up with it, that's fine to come up without it. And then we turn around, and you can see I've turned around so that I'll still be able to face you because, well, your hair looks very nice tonight, and I like the way you've got it lit there. So I can't resist turning to look at what you've done with the place and everything else. It looks very good. So when you're ready, opposite leg with the block, the opposite hand to the front leg. And making sure you've got minimally heel to heel, but probably wider. Raise the block up if you're ready. Breathe through your nose. Imagine you were relaxed and happy. Inhale, exhale, come down when you're ready. Again, whatever height you want from the block. Full height, half height, the lowest height up to you. Well, it's not actually up to you as a sort of constructed personality, but it's up to the reality here and now of the flow, which is an amazing release of this self-creating universe. It's really tiring, isn't it, being somebody all the time? Being somebody's this, being someone's that, tremendous pressure. So letting go of ideas about the pose and opening up to the fields of interdependence, like the field of interdependence between the body, the brain, and the breath, for example. Again, you can raise the arm if you wanted to, but oftentimes, as I mentioned, it might distract us from really getting the metaphorical cake baked, which is at the lower part of the pose. Breath, breath, breath. Keep that jaw really passive. There's a sense in which your front foot can almost feel like it's sucking on the floor, sort of sucking energy up through the arches of the feet, and particularly the medial and the lateral arches, but also the transverse arch at the front. Avoid gripping your toes on the back foot if you can. Inhaling to come up. Good job. Step your back foot forwards. Take a breath or two. Take your feet hip width apart. Have a look down at your toes. Make sure they're not turning out or in, but they're straight ahead, like you're on little railway tracks, like the ones they have at Hove Park in the Brighton area, or Brockwell Park in the London area. Raise your arms up if you're ready. Inhale, exhale, sweep down to flat hands on the floor, which almost certainly means bending the knees. It doesn't definitely, but almost certainly. Jaw soft, eyes soft, breathing deep. And a flow of breath. A flow of breath. So remember, if there's any dullness, aching, or pain in your back that is sustained, in other words, not showing signs of release, and you've got straight legs, then you should bend them. Or if they're bent, you should bend them more. Saying that, however, one or two people might feel comfortable with straight legs, and they might feel some dullness, aching, or pain in the back, but they might feel it begin to release by moving the feet, moving the pelvis, increasing the hydration levels in the body like that. So it's possible that the legs might be straight and still have that potential to release. Some people like to hold the elbows or forearms. This is Uttanasana. That's Ut plus Tan plus Asana. Ut meaning intense, Tan meaning in this context stretch, and Asana in this context, that is to say some Hatha Yoga texts after the 11th century, meaning posture. Make sure your back is, in a sense, breathing, and that there's a sense of flow rather than blockage. And if it's in the body, it will also be in the mind. So if it's not in the mind, then it's not going to be in the body. So you look for these signs being universal. Body, brain, breath. From here, we're going to bring our hands a little further forwards and step our feet back to the well-known Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Padding the paws, your hands that is, into a deeper weave with the yoga mat. Stretch open your armpits, especially the inner armpit as the lead armpit. So imagine it and feel it, or them, I should say, getting long. And then the outer armpit following. Lots of other things I know you know how to do and you find useful, like moving your pelvis, bending your knees. It's all about deeper levels of occupation, being occupied in the body. That's what we're interested in. Then we're going to step our feet a little closer to each other, and we're going to raise one leg up with due care and awareness of our furniture and stuff. And then you can bend and extend. You can turn out or in. So this is sometimes called the three-legged dog. So breathing deep. So it will be Trianga
Trianga meaning three limbs. Trianga Adho Mukha Svanasana. When you're ready, bring your foot, forwards into the place of the hand. Now, you might want to do that on one or two sessions or movements, or one big movement instead of, or two or three, or whatever it works for you. The foot comes in the place of the hand, the knee is behind the hip. You stretch and play with the knee up and down as you feel is effective. The effect should be felt everywhere. If it's anywhere, it's everywhere. Okay, so that's just how it is. If it's anywhere, it's everywhere. Eventually, the knee will land. Hopefully, you get a chance to really massage the inner thigh in the way that you need here and now. And once the knee is landed, really focus on an upward release that the breath's involved in as you bring your hands onto your knee and lightly tone your tum. Breathe through your nose if you can. Reiterative tone in the tummy. Natural, honest, meditative breath. Raise the arms up if you want, as an expression following the lift of the groin or the release of the groin of the back leg. And the tummy investigatively toned throughout your investigative movements. And we're investigating, of course, disappearing absorption. This is Anjaneya asana. Anjaneya is one of the names of Hanuman. Okay, coming forwards. Well done. We're coming back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, the downward facing dog, before we come into the Trianga Adho Mukha Svanasana, the three-legged dog. Really pad your paws, really stretch through in a manner that is meditative, aka absorbing. We use the word meditative, we mean absorbing. Feet might pad, knees might bend, stretch as in a meditative way. The armpits, the inner is the pacemaker, as it were, and the outer is always attempting to sort of follow behind, catch up, as it were, but the inner armpit always takes the lead and stays a little way in the lead. Walk your feet a little closer to each other and go ahead and raise your other leg, perhaps through a cheese plant if you have one nearby. If not, don't worry, you don't have to have cheese plants to raise your leg through. You can bend and extend, you can turn in or out, you can lift or land the back heel as you like. It's a meditation based on absorption in the present, which is the mother field. The present is another way of saying the mother field. The mother field is another way of saying the present. When you're ready, sweep the foot forwards on the exhale into the place of its own hand. Play with the stretch on the inner groin of the back knee, moving backwards, moving forwards, moving up, moving down, until you get that meditative feel. That's all we're looking for, is that meditative feel. So don't hold the breath, that's important. The breath just flows, it just flows. And then eventually the knee can land somewhere behind the pelvis, and then we're going to go ahead and climb up onto the front leg. Obviously, if it's not comfortable on your back knee, you can come back to hands and knees, readjust the position of the knee until it is comfortable. If you feel that you can imagine and feel an upward release on the groin, follow that through with your arms, but follow it from the groin. So the arms are an expression of a release that's psychophysical. It's psychophysical release. Breathing deep, breathing honest, investigative, natural awareness. Jaw remains peaceful.
brain remains passive. Calmly coming forwards when you're ready, lifting the back knee, this time to a wide Adho Mukha Svanasana. The feet are taken almost off the mat, sort of half the foot on, half the foot off. The hands remain shoulder width, but this extra wide stride gives you space, akasha, space, to explore, to range around, to float, to flow. Keep that jaw passive, as are the eyes, as is the brain. Great. Well done, everyone. Come down slowly and bring yourself into a cross-legged position. Some people might need more padding for this. I certainly used to find that my outer ankles used to dig in the floor, especially when you fold forwards in this pose. So you can fold your mat over if you want more padding. But there's something else you can also do. Once you're sitting cross-legged, I find that if you do feel pressure of your outer ankle, moving the skin with your fingers, just stretching the skin, can adjust where the tiny little thread-like nerves contact the ground. And you can adjust until there is no discomfort. That's one thing that is quite interesting to do. I should have mentioned that it's useful to have a block, brick block, in front of you. So make sure you get that now. Buttock flesh out and back, I'm sure you've done it, but you can do it again. I'm sure it's useful many times. Breathe easy, just lean the pelvis a little forwards and breathe into any stretch, even if it's just a micro stretch or if it's a macro stretch. Just breathing into it and calmly bringing your hands forwards to the block. So we're always about integration. We're not about speed. We're not about look, how we look, not about appearance. So if you've got a little challenge, enough challenge, that's all you need. Yogis are very content, should be. We're encouraged to be very content with very little, aren't we? We look at hatha yoga texts. Yogis are often in very modest little huts that they've made. So any movement forwards in this isn't something that's coming from our normal sort of egoic drives, but is coming from the breath. So this is profoundly satya, honest. It should be profoundly satya, honest. And that's infinitely more important than trying to get somewhere further, trying to further yourself relative to your past or relative to someone else. So you might just say with a little lean of the pelvis and hands on the fully upright block, or you might turn the block. Some people find in time that the head might even rest on a block. If you do rest the head on the block, make sure it's tilted. It's better that way for the neck. But also make sure the bottom of the block is secure. That quite often I hold it just so it doesn't slip. So movement's not coming from ego, it's not coming from peer group pressure, it's not coming from sort of perpetual idea that we should be advancing all the time, sort of capitalist idea in a way. The inevitable march of progress kind of issue, bit of an issue that. And some people, so there's a whole range. The block might even be dispensed with for some. If you do end up with your head very, very low on the low block or on the floor, it can be nice to explore bringing your hands on the floor, on your back behind you. Then it's breath.
wherever you are. It's breath. Great. Coming up the way you went down, so I don't know, what level the block was on. Coming up slowly without haste. Changing the cross of the legs. You might want to stretch them out first, which is, absolutely a good idea if your body tells you. And then drawing the buttock out and back when you feel ready. And similarly, using the block. And again, it may be a tiny movement. I've said it many times. I'll go close to the mic for it. That a great yogini gets more and more from less and less. So if you get enough out of this, you get enough to breathe into, and you don't crave or need anymore, then that makes you a great yogini or yogin. Don't hold the breath. You know how tiring it is to be somebody. The great thing about yoga is it doesn't need you. It doesn't need you. It doesn't need you in any of your formations as a friend, as a parent, as an offspring, as a sibling, as an employee, as a citizen, as a member of a gender, as a whatever, Doesn't need you in with any of your hats on, as it were. So the block's just options. It's, there really is no value difference in a low block or a high block or whatever. The value is made simply by what is enough. What is enough? Enough to invite a release of the defenses that the body-mind holds, the defenses that we use to, inverted commas, protect from whatever are the environmental impingements, current environmental impingements might be. But yoga says the best protection is not to resist, but instead to give. Just like a tree. It hit me the other day. In fact, it was through contact with a tree, it was contact with a yucca, actually, that I realized that the modus operandi of trees is giving. It's just their sort of natural state. And it was a real revelation that really hit me beautifully. That you can, that they function so well like that. In their giving modality. It's beautiful, actually. It's transformative to realize that trees' modus operandi is dana, giving. Okay, good stuff. Wherever you came down to, come up slow and calm and easy. And we're going to lay down on our backs, which I know will be a popular event. So laying down on your back, when you're ready, popping your hands behind the head with the fingers interlaced. And taking a breath or two like that. Very simple, isn't it? Very, very simple.
jaw soft. There's something lovely about the simple invitation to let go of the defenses that express in the muscles but originate from the nerves, which themselves are imprinted into via relationships, in particular with our environment, so-called environment, as if the environment were something we lived in rather than as. Of course, we live as our environment. And lift up your feet when you're ready in the lower back. I hope you'll feel something is quite nice there, the softness, as the floor presses into the thoracolumbar fascia. Keep the jaw passive. Lift up your head when you're ready. Eyes soft, jaw soft, brain soft, throat soft. Light tone in the tummy. Touch the floor with the toes of both feet in a slow descent, an eccentric contraction. So really control the descent from the belly. Keep the back close to the floor and then float again very slowly the legs back. It should evoke quite a strong toned feeling, I think. It certainly does in me. And the legs just drift until they get to a sort of natural position. And then we're going to toe tap. So that's alternate toe tapping. Again, this means each leg is brought through eccentric contraction, which is where the muscle fibers slip, as it were, into a longer weave, sort of stretched out. But the individual muscle cells keep their tone. So real control, slow and steady and calm. And push that lower back into the floor of your belly, starting to feel, intense. That's very, very good. We need intensity in yoga. It's important because you need a thorn to remove a thorn. You can use a smaller piece of wood to remove a larger piece of wood. You need to use a pattern to remove other patterns. These are quotes from various traditions. Okay, slowly, while still tapping, bring your head back down to the floor, still tapping, and then we're going to tap without touching the floor, so it's not really tapping at all, it's just back and forth. And then we're going to start extending the range. And as you extend and then retract, I think it's quite nice once you reach the end of your extension to allow a sort of spring back. So I usually accelerate a little bit towards the end of my full extension before the leg recoils. A few more if you're okay to. Keep that lower back close to the floor. Doing a good job. Doesn't have to be easy. And then finally the feet come down. I expect you'll all have a deep breath. I will. Or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. With the eyes soft, with the brain soft, with the throat soft. Release your hands from behind your head and rest your hands on your ribs. Relax your neck. Relax the eyes. Apologies if you can hear a bit of tip tapping in the background. Kadine's writing her Yoga Nidra course in the room next door. You probably can't hear it, but just in case. It's the tip tapping of a computer. Lift up your feet when you're ready. Lower back close to the floor, jaw soft. Breathing through your nose. Take your knees a little way apart and hands together, up above you. You got it. And then through the legs towards the toes, lifting your head. And if you can, the pelvis too. And then move back. And we'll do that a couple more times. So 3 in total. It's not complicated, but it is quite effective. The feet return to the floor. You raise one leg up and either hold the back of the thigh, so fingers interlaced, which is a nice starting point anyway. Or if you want, you can walk up to the calf and massage up and down, particularly pressing your fingers into the midline in between the two heads of the gastrocnemius muscle. Or for those who've got long arms and short legs, reaching up to the foot and breathing through your nose. Neck soft, jaw soft, brain soft, tongue soft. Okay, lift up the other foot when you're ready and extend that leg out to about 45 degrees before lowering it down. So, your hand can be anywhere, as I've described the 3 placements. Could be on the calf, could be at the back of the thigh. The other legs come down to the floor. And then we're investigating extension. Keep breathing, jaw soft. Okay, bend the lower leg, release the upper. Let me hear you take a deep breath in and out. Maybe 2 or 3 or 4. When you're ready, up comes the other leg. Again, back of the thigh is a good option. Very good option, actually. We've explored that in many previous classes. The relationship between hands into thigh and thigh into hands. Energy coming either into the tibial tuberosity at the top of the shin or somewhere in the knee joint itself. Energy in the form of tingling or buzzing. And then directing that energy like combing your hair. So a sort of repeated intention to move that energy up towards the pelvis. Or the pressing into the gastrocnemius, which I mentioned before. Avoid pressing into the tendon, so the muscle tendon that both the gastrocnemius and soleus both share, which is called the calcaneus tendon. And again, for those with short legs, long arms, you might hold the foot. But most of us don't have that kind of anatomy, but just in case. Lifting the other foot up off the floor. There's a moment when the lower back is peaceful. You might be holding any of the other positions. And then extend the leg out to about 45 degrees. Keep your neck passive as you explore extension. Make sure the breath is not held at any point and that you can really nudge some stretch through. Breathe through your nose. Investigate. Okay, well done. Bend the lower leg, release the upper. Place both feet on the floor. Rest your hands on the upper chest if that's comfortable. Adjust your elbows to make it more comfortable, thereby adjusting your shoulder blades. Just take 3 to 5 deep breaths. Wait for the muscles of the lower back to really relax. The muscles of the lower back really relax.
Lift the feet up off the floor. Embrace your legs and have a good old-fashioned roll around. I'm sure you're going to find some sensations that are, just beautiful, timeless, ageless, deathless sensations that, they're beyond any need to qualify with words or descriptives. They can simply be expressed with expressives, oohs and ahs, and sighs, and naturally deeper breaths, and so on. So these are what I call expressives or proto-language. They express the feeling of the now without the need to try and describe the feeling of the now. All about the breath, keep that flowing. Okay, you can roll around a little longer if you want, but if you're ready to bring the feet down, then go ahead and do so. Then roll over onto your side, facing towards the camera if you've got it set up that way, which you might do. But either direction, you don't have to be facing the camera. Support your head with your hand. Extend your bottom ribs. Do it a few times until your contact increases, because that's your raw materials. So the more raw material you have, the more you can spin that raw material into gold, as it were. I'm sort of referencing Rumpelstiltskin, the book, or Rumpelstiltskin, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, rolling backwards and forwards on the side towards the front of the leg can be used as a very, very meditative, absorbing, breath-releasing, intimate, powerful, taking you beyond the very, very limited, dispowering paradigms of things that you can describe. It's always, the difficulty with descriptives is that they, 9 times out of 10, are separators. And reality is not separate, like success and failure are not separate, as we like to imagine, or good and bad aren't sort of separate. It's not like good people, bad people. The whole shades of grey, and of course, and circumstances bear on the results. So just rolling, rolling, rolling. And when you're ready, bring your top leg up. So we're going to come back to the upright and just play with the adductors on the inner thigh. So one good way to do that is to move the leg backwards and forwards. I've experimented with this in many ways over the years. But one really nice way is just to imagine and feel those adductor muscles. Getting a good stretch, getting a good release, getting a good invitation to absorption. And because it can feel so good, one doesn't need to do anything other, actually, than this meditative, playful release of the adductor muscles. So it's quite nice to deliberately not go to what we presume will be the next stage, which is to hold the big toe, simply so that we value each moment rather than the mind going, well, where is this going? It doesn't matter where it's going. Where is it now is what we're really interested in, for reasons that I've described many times. Okay, when you're ready, we'll release that leg. We'll drop our heads. I should have mentioned that if it's difficult to hold your head like I did, you can use a blanket between your head and your arm. Knees up, come up from the side if you're ready. Swing round to the other side. So you're laying on the other side of your body. Similarly, extending your bottom ribs multiple times.
Great. Breathing through your nose if you can. And then a bit of rolling. Absolutely delicious experience. Rolling forwards, rolling backwards. And looking for heaven. So heaven is where the individual, with whichever hat it's wearing and all the stresses that go with that, disappears. It's sort of eaten, as it were. And that's such a release, because all that's associated with past, my past and various things we feel about the past, whether there's regret and remorse or whether there's nostalgia and yearning, that's all eaten up, just eaten, gobbled up without a trace. The idea of where we're going in the future as well, what I'm supposed to achieve, where I'm supposed to go, that gets eaten up in the richness. And ideas about oneself in the present also. Rolling, breathing, rolling, breathing, rolling, breathing. If you feel ready to come back to the upright and begin the play, this beautiful meditative play of the inner thigh muscles, brevis longus magnus in particular, the named adductors, adductor brevis, adductor magnus, adductor longus. And they're what they sound like. One's short, adductor brevis, one's long, adductor longus, one big, adductor magnus, adductor magnus. Sorry, not a Dr. Magnus. I don't know who that might be. Jaw soft, breathing easy. Magnus is the same as the Sanskrit word maha, like in Mahatma Gandhi, or Mahavira, or Mahayana, and so on. So it means great. Maha means great. Magnus also can mean great. Keep playing with it in ways that are just powerfully absorbing. Okay, well done. Could do that for a while. I don't know about you. I find that very enjoyable. The knees come up, and we have a couple of seconds just of breath on the side. Jaw soft. And then we're coming up before we get too settled there. And we're going to sit on a brick block if you've got one. You can sit on the short end of a regular block if that's you don't have a brick block. Or one or two people do have special dispensation not to sit on the block. Those are people with very open hips and very bony bottoms. So there's only actually one person I've ever given a sort of carte blanche to on that. And that's because she's got very open hips and very bony buttocks. Chest lifted, breathing through the nose. Shoulders down. And gathering your focus. If this pose isn't comfortable, please sit in any comfortable position. And we're just going to do the practice for the all-over, the Vyana Vayu, the all-over energy. So in a moment, we're going to make that energy through a clapping sound above our head. We're going to gather that energy by rubbing our hands, and then we're going to distribute that energy over the whole body like that. And then we're going to take 3 bows and arrows to each side like that. We'll be holding the breath during the whole thing. So here's a demonstration of it briefly before you do it, just to remind you. So I start by taking sips of breath, 2, 3, 4, a bit like the Viloma breathing, some of you know, but it's just a bit of the inhale, a bit more of the same inhale, there's no exhale, a bit more of the same inhale, you hold your breath like this. And then you breathe out at the end. Okay, so let's do that together. Let's take a deep breath into the pelvic floor in sips. And breathing out at the end. We'll sit for a moment in what's called rigpa, which is a Tibetan word, which roughly correlates to the Sanskrit word vidya. And vidya implies insight or sight or knowledge even. But it's not this sort of like knowledge of things you hold in your head, but a direct knowledge that's facilitated through being centered rather than pulled to one or another of our various polarities that we have as choices around our center all the time. And our penultimate practice will be Brahmari, which we'll use Shanmukhi Mudra. Shanmukhi Mudra is where you close your eyes with your fingers, you close the tragus, the cartilaginous door across the ear with your thumbs. You take a deep breath in and out through open, unobstructed nostrils before partially obstructing your nostrils for inhale and exhale. The only difference between inhale and exhale is hummed like this. And so on until you finish breathing out. So we'll do 3 rounds of Brahmari. Don't forget to take the deep breath in and out without obstructing the nostrils before partially obstructing them for inhale and exhale, remembering to hum those exhales. 3 rounds is an inhale and an exhale. Okay, see you on the other side. When you finished your 3rd round, the arms can rest. And so I mentioned that was our penultimate pose. Our ultimate pose, of course, is the incredible and beautiful Shavasana, which wasn't named as Shavasana until about 500 years ago, but was a practice way before that. So let's lay down on our backs without further ado. Make sure we're very comfortable for this excellent, as the text says, excellent Sankirta. This is an excellent Sankirta. One of the 5 practices taught out of the 80 million that apparently are known to Shiva, taught for the purpose of melting. So we're making sure we're warm, we're laying on our backs, palms are facing up, shoulder blades are scooted under and the chest is buoyant. If the head tips back, it's definitely worth taking head support. So remember, the practice is for the purpose of melting. That's what we're told in the text. What melts? Everything. Body, brain, breath. And once you're comfortable and you've got those shoulder blades scooted under and the chest buoyant, we start by surrendering, or through surrender, which is primarily of weight. Initially, we surrender the weight of the body. Feel the connection between surrender, total surrender of weight, of breath, of these separate identities, and expansion. The connection between surrender and expansion. The more of the one, the more of the other. In our expanded state, Brahman, our expanded state, Brahman, which means to swell, or to grow, or to expand, or even in some context it can mean to pray, which is interesting. All right, the fully expanded state is our true identity, according to Vedantic philosophy, which is the mainstay of what we might call Hindu philosophy now. As we know, the joy of Zoom yoga is, well, we can lay as long as we've got. We don't have to rush. We don't have to move if we're not ready. But when we do move, which could be now, but might not be, we can wiggle our fingers and toes. We can take little stretches. We can rub our eyes. And eventually we can bend the legs, place the feet on the floor before rolling to the left for a while, disciplining ourselves not to come out too fast, and then to the right for a while. Similarly, so the way we come out is really important because it conditions our attitude going forward. So, and eventually we'll come up from the side. Might not be now, might be in 10 minutes or more even. But I'll say my fond farewells. But before I do, perhaps we can transfer merit from the class, which is a beautiful Buddhist practice. So I'll just say a few lines. If you agree with these lines, you can say Om, which means I agree in this context. So may any benefit that we gain interacting in this way go to the alleviation of the suffering of absolutely every single being in the whole of the known universe without exception. Om. Lovely to have you along. I really appreciate your time. Do join me in Turkey, me and Kadeen in Turkey in June if you can. Or don't forget to book on my immersion at the end of August, which will be beautiful at Gales. Or much further in the year, but you might want to plan for it, the winter solstice retreat at Florence House, which is over the winter solstice. So there's 3 adverts. Unashamedly advertising. Thanks, gang. See you very soon. Loads of love. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.